What's up, guys? Larry Chen here. Welcome to another episode of Hoonigan Autofocus. We're at Pikes Peak, and as always, we like to feature a lot of the cars that show up to Pikes Peak. We got a car here that I've photographed for many years through all different stages. We got William. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's
So-
great to be back in the U.S. and doing some motorsports adventures again.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've been stuck in Canada for a while, right?
Yep.
But you're back, and this is your second time at Pikes Peak, correct?
We ran it in 2019. It was a great experience. We actually got on the podium, came third place in unlimited class. We didn't quite achieve what we, came to achieve. So that's why we're back. We're here to, battle for the front wheel drive record, and hopefully the mountain gives us that opportunity and we have our homework done.
Yeah, the mountain doesn't lie. If she will let you go up, she will let you go up, and you will go up. If she lets you get a record, then you will get a record. But this Civic, if I can still call it a Civic,
It's a Civic.
It's gone through so many stages, and it's kind of amazing what you've been able to achieve with it. So do you still hold the record at Tsukuba?
So I still have the FF record at Tsukuba.
Yeah.
Currently, we still technically hold the records at Global Time Attack at Buttonwillow, Road Atlanta, New Jersey Motorsports Park. We also hold the Gridlife record at Gingerman Raceway. Those are pretty big.
But those are overall records, right?
Those are overall time attack records.
Yeah, time attack overall. Doesn't matter if it's front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, no wheel drive, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're competing with a vehicle that was meant to just
Haul groceries.
haul groceries, be reliable, and it's a Honda, right? But you've just turned it into something greater. You've turned it into something insane. It's really cool to see what you've done. So this is the last generation. What have you changed from the previous generation?
Okay, so a little bit of a primer. The original Civic that we set all the records on. Unfortunately, I kind of smashed the crap out of it at Road America in 2019. So this is actually version 2 of that car. It's a new chassis. We rebuilt it. A lot of carryover parts from the last car, but overall, there's a lot of new ideas and new implementations adapted into this car to really take what we've achieved and take it to that next level. I think, bringing back that Civic and the front wheel driveness of it, I think one of the eye-opening things as a competitor was, when we first started going down this path, especially with the front wheel drive car, back in 2015 when we first built the car into an unlimited class car, I don't think anybody really gave us any real attention at that point in time of, where we were gonna end up. And I don't think even as a team we really knew how far we could take it. But then as we kept developing and keep pushing and pushing, we just started achieving, goals that almost seemed impossible. Like those overall records really seemed impossible when we first started this build. And I really, going backwards, it's like, just don't look at limitations, look at possibilities, and that's really what this is.
If you told me however many years ago, when time attack actually I feel like was probably the most popular in the US, that a front wheel drive car would hold all these records, I would think you're crazy. I would say there's no way. But the crazy thing to me is, while this car was quick as a stock vehicle, if you take it onto the track, it's nowhere near fast, compared
Right.
to a purpose-built sports car, purpose-built
Correct.
race car, right? But you've changed it to and at that point, at this point, it's not really a Civic anymore. It's just this crazy front-wheel drive vehicle.
But to the surprise of a lot of people, you look at it, obviously, the aero package is overwhelming on the car. But we still run stock floor pan, I run stock subframe, stock lower control arms,
Stock brakes.
stock rear brakes.
Stock brakes, I can't
stock-
believe.
So stock rear lower control arms, a lot of stock parts.
Yeah.
So the actual, and the pickup points are all still OEM. We did do some modification to the rear suspension, but the overall geometry is still Honda. And I think a lot of people are surprised when I tell them, like, it's like, no, I still run stock tie rods on this front of this car. And it just shows you, sometimes people get too into it and really too into making perfect when good enough was already there. And that's really how my program works. My program looks at the next weakest point and develop from there, improve upon there.
Because you never actually imagined that it would get to this point. It just evolved over time.
Absolutely. And, we're not a pro team by any stretch of the imagination. All the ideas here, like a lot of the aero design, this car's never been through CFD. It doesn't have a 3D scan on it. It's never been in a wind tunnel. These are literally ideas we have. Now, a lot of them are just basic principles that are already proven, and we just implement it in the best way possible. So, as I was, telling the guys at Cole Duran shop at 4D Engineering, it's like the whole aero concept was made out of cardboard initially and modified in cardboard until we were happy with what our design was, and then we made a mold of it and then made the carbon parts out of it.
So technically, I haven't actually shot this vehicle because this is a brand new chassis.
This is a brand new chassis.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So the OG chassis is in the scrap.
Right. But I absolutely love the livery. I love the vibrant performance. I love the Pikes Peak mountain on the side. Let's start with the front. Can we check out the engine?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So what are we looking at here?
So K24. The block is sleeved by LA Sleeves. Pistons and rods are CP Carrillo. And all the valve train on the top is SuperTech with BC cams, Cometic gasket. Just stuff we've, felt really comfortable with the past. So we knew that really from our experience from the original Civic, these are proven parts. Mm-hmm. Made it via a competition clutch twin disc into a Quaife sequential. So this Quaife sequential, actually Quaife is a partner of our Pikes Peak program this year. So this Quaife sequential, we actually have gear ratios that are really specific to our hill climb. It is such a unique course, unique track that you can't take a normal road course transmission and be efficient from the bottom to the top.
Well, essentially that was one of the big failures for you last year, unfortunately, was
Correct.
The fact that you were stuck in first gear?
First gear, yeah. So right after Boulder Park, unfortunately we had a transmission issue, and I basically climbed the last mile and a half in first gear. Still made it to the summit, so that was our goal number one, right? When we came here, it was to reach the summit, and to be able to cross that finish line, even though we were crawling, was still an amazing feeling.
Okay. And then so now, hopefully you don't have a transmission failure. I mean, how much power are you putting out, and how much?
So I'll go backwards in time.
Yeah.
So we had this failure in 2019, and like I said, Quaife became a partner. Little things that a lot of people don't notice is they took a look at the input shaft that actually failed. They analyzed it. They made improvements. This new input shaft is substantially stronger. And what's awesome about a company like Quaife and Momentum Motorsports that basically helps us with this is they look at that, they make these improvements, they don't advertise it. In fact, there's 4 major improvements to the Quaife transmission since we've actually first started in 2016, and people don't know them. They're rolling improvements. This is a company that just keeps advancing the product, and I can honestly state the strength between 2016 to 2021 is incredibly improved.
It's kind of insane to me that, like, what other applications could this be used on? Like all front wheel drive cars?
Well, no, because the MR2 swaps, for example, the MRS swaps, any of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars, obviously all the front-wheel drive platforms. So it's actually really universal, not straight rear-wheel drive, but mid-engine rear drive and all the front-wheel drive cars.
And you're using a pneumatic system for
So
shifting?
yes, I use an air shifter with it, so paddle air shifter, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. And that's definitely something that, we switched to an Mtron ECU, and they actually have an honestly amazing paddle shift logistics inside their actual computer, and something we can really take advantage of with this setup.
And then, so at altitude, how much power do you think you're going to be making? The range, because I know it changes. Start line is what, 9,000 some square feet or
Feet
elevation,
high,
and then
Just
the
over
summit is
14,000
14,000.
feet, which is crazy, right? By calculations, we're probably in that mid sixes in terms of, you know, actual horsepower that we're going to apply down there. Definitely not the same level that we would compete in time attack. Partly because of elevation, partly actually because of the fact that, you know, heat is one of our worst enemies when it comes to running at altitude. It's not just harder for the engine to make power, it's also harder for the cooling system to be efficient because the air density is just so much less. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll regulate the power based on temperature, and really that'll dictate how much we turn this thing up.
Got it. That's actually something I haven't heard about yet. And that's pretty
Which is
interesting.
amazing, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because a lot of people don't understand that, for example, brakes are a big issue on Pikes Peak. Even though you're going uphill, the air is so much thinner, it's
Yep.
just not able to dissipate as much heat
Correct.
as quickly. Okay, so it's just, where does the actual chassis start?
From here, this is all OEM back.
Oh, okay.
So this is Honda right here.
Right.
And we've just, you know, so amazing, you know, amazingly, we just made a rad support, like Vibrant Performance helped us design this rad support, and it just bolts onto the OEM bolts.
This is just so incredible, though. I just can't believe how crazy this aero is. I mean, it's amazing because I was, you know, shooting time attack in the era when Chris Rado had that front wing.
Yes, the F-wing.
Yeah, the F-wing, and I thought that was like the way to go to get the downforce, but obviously not, because, you know, with just a huge front splitter, and a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of mechanical things that you've had to do. I mean, including the fact that you can fit 300 or 315 tires in the front, right?
Yes,
Is that what
so
you run?
315, 3018 A7s. We do run much smaller in back, so we run 255, 35 18s in the rear. Same thing, A7s. And but it is part of the secret. Part of the secret to the success is having everything work together. So the right amount of aero, the right amount of tire. Tire gives us a good mechanical grip, and then the aero helps us assist it at speed. Definitely something that Pikes Peak is unique, because from low speed to high speed, it's such a wide range. Wider than any race course we've ever been to, for sure.
Let's check out the back here. Tail lights, carbon. I love your little third brake light.
Yeah, so that's an FIA rain light, but we use it as a brake light.
That's super cool. So this is what's insane to me. Like, I mean, I've had a chance to see the Scorch Racing S15. It's like, how big can you possibly make it? You know. Like,
so I think that's the uniqueness about the sport of time attack, more so than just Pikes Peak. But like, we look at time attack, and the evolution of aero has just been incredible, especially at the World Time Attack. Like you said, you mentioned under Suzuki's, the RP968. They're all really doing these tunnel diffusers, and part of the reason why is when you do diffuser and flat bottom oriented aero gains, normally it's not at this huge sacrifice of drag of just putting gigantic wings on. So when you put a big wing on, they are obviously, the lift to drag is pretty noted, but normally to make more downforce, you just increase the drag. What's unique about doing diffuser and groundwork is you can increase that downforce without taking huge drag penalties like you would with a straight wing. So when the overall scheme of efficiency, it ends up being better.
wow. Okay. Huh.
Giving away too many secrets here.
Yeah. No.
Just kidding. I love it. I love it.
I love all the ins and outs of this vehicle. It just blows my mind. Just you telling me this stuff is just so cool. I mean, even like the littlest things, like push down to open door.
Welcome to the office.
It's actually a huge office.
It's comfy.
I mean, the Civic, as a street car, you know, it's very usable, very user-friendly, right?
Yep.
A lot of room. And then when you remove the dash, it's so much bigger. A lot of people can fit in this.
Honestly, like I'm very comfortable in the car. I can say that. It's not confined. And, you know, being not confined, you know, we have a lot of flexible options in terms of mounting stuff, keeping the lower center of gravity on certain parts. You know, Sparco carbon steering wheel, a PE Racing pedal set, Motec dash, just simple, like, you know, pieces for me to use. And
is that a stock steering column
so
setup
OEM steering column?
Wow.
This goes back to the, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, like I said, we have an M-Tron KV8 ECU right there.
Wait, and then Is this a stock glass for why?
So I used to run a carbon slash Lexan window, and when I was rebuilding this car, I was kind of like, I prefer the glass.
Yeah.
Less flex, something, not so much here, but like when we go to Road Atlanta and you're going down the back street and you're doing 170 plus miles an hour, you notice that flex. So that was something that I was like, you know what, I there's a little bit of weight penalty with it, but I do prefer actually just being able to have a good vision.
You can probably see a lot better.
That's
and
exactly
that's really so important. And I've watched the videos of you driving, like specifically at Scuba, and it's crazy. It doesn't feel dramatic, I guess, but that's the point, right? You don't want it to be so crazy all over the place.
I think different drivers have a very different, characteristic on what they feel is correct. To me, I would say, like, going back to what I was saying before about, being efficient, making the most use of a car. To me, that's as important as just trying to push the boundaries all the time. Sometimes when you're driving right at the very edge, you end up losing speed. So I find, like, to me, if you can get to that 98% of grip, that's almost ideal. But it takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of knowing your car to be able to get that kind of comfort zone. And like you said, a lot of it gets lost in the videos because you don't see, when you look at the G-forces, you can see that it's actually, and you obviously the lap times, that it's absolutely fast. But just visually, there's not a lot of steering inputs, not a lot of braking inputs, and it's just, where it needs to be as much as it needs to be.
All right, so what do we have here? We got the anti-gravity lithium-ion battery, which weighs very nothing.
Yes.
We got your air tank and air pump setup.
Correct.
What is that?
So that's actually a TI fuel pump controller. So we run from Radium Engineering. We actually run what is called an FCST. So I'll actually open this up.
Whoa.
So there's
okay.
the FCST.
And then you put the fuel cell here to offset your weight.
So a couple of reasons why we have the fuel cell there. First is lower center of gravity, offsetting the weight, and also lets us open up the back end for aero purposes.
Got it. I see. That's actually more important then.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. What are those?
So those tubes are they're actually dryer ducts.
What
that we added. So I had Aaron Weir help me make an extra oil cooler that we've actually put in place in the scavenge stage. And this is specific to Pikes Peak.
Right.
After Pikes Peak, that cooler actually comes back out, and all those ducts will be out of there again. And it just goes back to that cooling here is just so hard that anything we can do to improve the cooling is an asset.
So how much has the cage changed since your last car?
Amazingly, it's 95% the same. There's actually very little changes between it. There are a couple additional bars that have been added, but overall, the makeup of it is actually based off the last one.
Part of it is because the last one was it worked. For the one time you needed it to work, it worked.
And thank you to Sparkle. I'm going to say right now, like, the safety equipment did its job. It was a really, really big impact to Road America. And between the seat, the Sparkle helmet, the Hans we had, they all did their job. And if any one part didn't do their job effectively, I probably would have been in a different state. Because, I walked away from that crash with just soreness, not even bruises, just soreness. So thanks to these guys at Sparkle USA for keeping me as safe as possible.
Thanks, Alan. Tell me about the rear suspension setup.
So this is new and unique in this chassis. The original car, we still actually used the Au-Yeung rear suspension system. So it was a divorce setup where the shock and spring were separate pieces. In this particular car, we took advantage of both, the placement of the rear inboard shock setup, and then obviously the cantilever. I had some help with it. Originally, I made the whole concept, again, based out of cardboard and just all my measurements. And then I had P Racing out of Australia. He actually modeled it in CAD to help me out with the motion ratios, make sure that our spring rates and our travel was acceptable. And then Fortune Auto came and obviously made us some custom three-way rear shocks to, mount up to the exact sizing we needed it to.
The fact that the wing ties into it, everything about this vehicle.
Just tried to make it as efficient as possible again.
Yeah.
Try not to waste.
So where does this air evacuate, actually?
So the air actually just goes into here. No,
Oh,
we have it
it's
just-
this little
yeah,
tiny...
yeah, just some vents to let the air come
No
out naturally.
way.
So we're not actually using the fan to really assist the thing. We're just trying to get as much air out of there as possible, even if it's part passive.
This view is just incredible. It's kind of amazing. I look at the original Honda chassis, and you haven't really cut up.
No,
You haven't cut it at all, really.
no, there's a lot of, like a lot of people would go a lot more ham with like
Yeah.
hole saws and stuff like that. And to me, I don't look at that. Yeah, you know, obviously there's probably 20 pounds that you can still cut out of the car, but I don't know, I like the Au-Yeung structure. I
Yeah.
have nothing against it.
Well, that's kind of part of what a lot of people like, I feel like, with these sort of builds, because they're more relatable. As crazy as this car is, it's still, as you said, a Civic chassis. It started life as a street car.
Yep.
Did you get a used one?
So
then?
this car was a used car.
Okay.
Right after we smashed it up, actually my wife Noreen, she was on the way home. You know, we had a broken car in the back trailer, and she's already on the Auto Trader looking for another car. You know, and literally, I think that the next weekend we went and picked up another chassis just so that way we could like strip it down and build up again.
So, and why not a newer Honda Civic chassis? Why not like a Type R? Why not start with something that's faster?
So I think there's two reasons for that. First is it's really expensive to build a car. We already had a lot of tooling for a lot of the molds, so right off the start, we were already ahead of the game to rework the chassis. The second part is, I'll say it, like, you know, you have to see what partnerships are available to be able to make maneuvers like that. And, you know, to take a brand new Type R, which is, you know, 40K basically, and then build up on it, it would be too much of an investment for our team. We're not a big team. We don't have massive funding behind us. Like, me and my wife run a small mechanic shop, you know, an automotive shop in Waterloo, Ontario, and that's, you know, how we basically fund the build. And obviously we have amazing sponsorship partners to help us get to events and develop the car and make it the best we possibly can. But at the same time, it's extremely expensive to compete.
Yeah, that's what would blow my mind is if you had that sort of budget. I couldn't imagine what your brain could think of, you know. And I'm sure you're so busy at night thinking about this kind of stuff all the time.
So I think, you know, going back to the why rebuild the same car, you know, I think to forward that a little more, I do believe this chassis is possibly one of the best front-wheel drive chassis in the world, even compared to a Chen. And knowing what I know from the original version and what we still had to gain and how much we still had to develop, I think this became the golden opportunity where it was like, hey, look, you know, I had all these, like you said, I had all these ideas in the back of my mind. We just never had the time or the drive to implement it into the original version, just because it takes so much effort to redesign stuff. And when that opportunity came, it was like, oh, let's take full advantage of this. Let's take what we've learned and take what we've wanted to do and make it that next level.
So did you happen to add weight or take away weight?
This car's actually lighter. So
Okay.
it's probably about 100 pounds lighter than the previous version. And it is more rigid. It's definitely more efficient. I look at the overall package and I think like it's a substantial step up.
Okay. Well, we're really excited to photograph you going up the mountain, and
I'm excited.
yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. I just love seeing a Civic up there with all the crazy aero. It's just so cool. It's just something that we can relate to, you know, something like tuners. It's cool to see all the open wheel cars and like the very Pikes Peak specific built cars. But this is the stuff that we can relate to. This is the stuff that I loved to photograph, just, I guess, growing up, you know. And yeah, I'm glad you came down from Canada to compete in this. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
See you at the summit.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll see you at the start line. I'm at the start line, but Leaf will be at the summit, and he'll see you there.
A lot of work.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.